Hey guys, this video is going to be about 7 nights of dinners that I'm going to share with you. I've got some barbecue roasted chicken breast there, some cos lettuce which I've chopped into chunks, same with the hot salami and smoked chicken breast. I've just cut it up into small bite-sized pieces. I've got some hard-boiled eggs and some breadsticks. You can make your own croutons if you like. I chose the lazy route. I've also grabbed some Caesar salad dressing. I thought I'll just trial the Coles one, so that is what I ended up using. I also added a little bit of shredded tasty cheese on top. Probably best to serve it with Parmesan cheese though, but this was an absolutely delicious meal. Next dinner I've got some chicken thighs. If you're a regular on my channel, you know that I never use oil when I'm cooking my chicken thigh because it's quite fatty. I've got some eggplant and some onion here. Once the chicken thigh is halfway cooked, I chop them up into small chunks. Then I toss in my onions and eggplant as I cook that through. Then I toss in my coconut curry sauce of choice, and I also add in a can of coconut milk as well because I like my curries quite saucy. Generally, I serve this with some white rice. So as you guys can see here, I start to mix in my curry sauce first and then I add in my coconut milk. I also often add some carrots and frozen green beans as well. This week I left out the carrots, but I did add in some leftover mushrooms I had in the fridge and some frozen green beans just to bulk up the vegetables in my meal. So this is pretty much what the finished product looks like. I just toss that in the fridge and then during the week I cook some white rice and serve the curry on top of the rice. Nice, quick, easy and a delicious dinner. So this next meal I've got loads of minced garlic, some fish sauce, some oyster sauce and sugar. I think most people would prefer less garlic, but I love my garlic so I go all out with it. Once I mix all of the sauce together, I add in some chopped onions to the mix. So it's quite chunky, but that's how I like it. I don't like it finely diced, so that's what I've done. Then I also trim off the fat off my rump steak that I buy from Aldi. So this is the small fatty pieces you guys can see. What I'm doing is rendering the fat off. Then I spoon all of the fat out and use the oil to cook my stir fry with. Meanwhile, I've got my rump steak chunks marinating in my sauce with my little onion chunks. So I'm just going to take you guys back to the pot that I have with the little fatty chunks. So as you can see, a lot of the fat has rendered out. I spoon out all of those chunks and toss it in the bin. And then I use that beef fatty oil liquid to cook my stir fry with. So once the meat is pretty much 50% cooked, I like to add in my frozen green beans because they don't take too long to cook. And that's the finished product. I didn't eat it with rice today because some days I cut out my carbs, but this is really delicious on some white steamed rice as well. So I'm cooking with chicken thighs again. So as you guys can see, I don't use any oil. I lightly season the chicken thigh with salt, chop up some onions and mushrooms. Once my chicken thighs are 75% cooked through, I cut them up into small chunks and then add in my onions to cook that through. All of that liquid you guys can see is actually chicken fat, so I could have taken some out if I wanted to, but I was a little bit lazy, so I've just used that chicken fat to cook down my onions and mushroom. A lot of people don't realize, so they actually add in oil whilst cooking chicken thigh, but chicken thigh is so fatty you don't really need any oil. I've then added in my seasoning mix, which is the chicken stroganoff mix, I think from the Continental brand, I believe. If you want to double check out my grocery haul because I would have showed you guys. Once I add in that seasoning mix, I add in the water. There's instructions on the seasoning mix instructing you on what to do. Let that simmer for a little bit and it gets into a nice, thick, yummy consistency. Once I cut the heat, I add in 2 large dollops of sour cream and mix that through. This can be served on top of pasta or rice. I personally prefer this with rice. On this particular day, I had a really lazy dinner. I've just grabbed some potato wedges from my freezer, which have been in there for ages. So I wanted to use that up. And then I also chucked a duck l'orange leg into my air fryer. Next meal, I've got some frozen green beans, garlic, potatoes, and salmon. I think I made this meal on New Year's Eve. So I just start by cooking my green beans with some garlic and soy sauce. Got my mashed potato and my pan-fried salmon fillet. I like to eat the skin because it's nice and crispy and has a lot of omega-3 in it. And I've also lightly added some smoked paprika on top as well. Next meal, I think my regulars will already know what I'm making. I've got some shepherd's pie mix here. Peck, if you're watching this, I have finally learnt that when I'm using beef mince, it's cottage pie. Although on this seasoning packet, it says shepherd's pie and it says you can add beef or lamb mince. I start by boiling my potatoes, chopping my onions, and then I also chop up my carrots. I love making shepherd's pie because it's so easy for me to hide in so much veggies. Sometimes I'll add in frozen peas, loads of carrots and onions, and as you guys can see here, I'm actually sauteing that with water instead of oil because I'm going to be using beef mince later. It has so much fat, so I don't want to add any more additional oil. So once I mix all of that through and it's cooked, I add in my shepherd's pie seasoning mix, and then I also add in water as per instructions on the pack. So the finished product looks like this, and whilst I'm cooking the meat mixture, my partner often helps me out by mashing the potatoes. So I add my meat sauce on top of my mashed potatoes, and this is one of our favorite meals to have during the week, especially when it's a cold, cold day.